And I'll lead you and you talk.
Okay, I'll do my best.
I'll
Is it on now?
Do we look at each other, or do you think it's better looking at the camera?
I think it's better to interact
Okay.
without the camera.
Yeah.
So what I've done is
Hello,
just
Steve.
So,
testing, starting now.
so
Hello,
hi,
Steve.
hi,
Hi.
Liz.
Hi.
So this is really a chance to talk about some of the key ideas in cognitive analytic therapy
Yes,
and the way in which some ideas have come into fashion and then have gone out of fashion.
great.
Idea number one: core pain.
Core pain.
How did that idea? I know it came from this idea of James Mann's of chronically endured pain.
Yes.
How did it become part of CAT?
It became part of CAT because involved in every reciprocal role is core pain, and core pain is often not discovered until we actually enter into an understanding of the reciprocal role.
And then the core pain is something, somebody's doing something to you, the top end of the reciprocal role, the parental end, and you feel something that's kind of chronically endured and is...
Well, if we take the example of controlling, demanding in relation to controlled, crushed possibly, the core pain then would be feeling crushed, feeling worthless possibly. These would be words that you would need to find by exploring at each end of that reciprocal role. And sometimes, of course, in therapy, we're as therapists are aware of the core pain. The patient often doesn't have the language for that until we begin to explore the reciprocity of the reciprocal roles.
And do you think, as well as the reciprocity, the to and fro of the reciprocal roles, as we begin to discover the, you could call it coping procedure, the procedure that is dealing with the core pain,
Mm-hmm.
the client may know that procedure,
Yes.
it may be symptomatic, but we're hoping that through naming and tracing the procedure we can get back to the core pain, that it's a defence against or a way of coping.
And a procedure against a core pain of crushed worthless would possibly be something like striving, and the person would only know, they might even come into therapy because they were permanently exhausted. They wouldn't have been aware of striving and why they were doing that. So we're constantly tracing the steps back in a sequential way, which is how we get to the diagram. And what maintains the core pain is, of course, the reciprocal role.
So there's crushing, demanding, to crushed and worthless, cope by striving, become then in another reciprocal role, exhausting to exhausted.
Or the striving coping mechanism, the way of surviving, could also be demanding self to self, which maintains the crushed self. So the three are in constant relationship with each other.
And I think we
Till
were
revised.
Till revised, which needs recognition of being in that kind of dance.
Yes.
A lifelong dance
Yes.
with its
Yes.
core pain. But the hardest thing perhaps is not only to see and feel the core pain, which may come out in therapy, but to see that the driver of the core pain is not just some historic person, but the internalized,
Yes.
I'm doing it to myself, I am making the demands, I am crushing myself.
Yes. Yes. Well, this is a three-way process, isn't it? We learn from whoever was other in our early life, the one part of the role and our response to it, and then we integrate that so it becomes a self-to-self reciprocal role. So we maintain that through our own behaviour toward ourselves until revised.
So that's core pain, but why did it go out of fashion? Because there was definitely a phase
Yes.
in this long 25-year plus history of CAT when core pain was seen
Yes.
as...
We don't do core pain anymore, we only do reciprocal roles. And I never got my mind around that because I always was really interested in core pain. And core pain, of course, might manifest itself in a therapeutic session as a presenting problem of exhaustion, of breakdown, of some physical ailment, of something going wrong. It wouldn't actually be named until the unpicking of the whole process we've just described.
So I think I know why core pain went out.
Oh, you do?
It went out when the concept associated with multiple self-states came in
Yes.
of unmanageable feelings. And we shifted
Yes.
from a single-person psychology, quite relational, but still thinking here is one dominant reciprocal role, abusing,
Yes.
neglecting, or demanding, or crushing, to crushed, core pain
Yes.
crushed, dominant ways of coping. When we begin to think there's this place crushing, that place neglecting, that place idealizing or spoiling, then we have multiple places and possibly multiple sources of hurt and difficult
Yes.
feeling.
Yes, yes, yes. But it's interesting, that development, because remember all the things that were in boxes. You could have quite a few boxes. They weren't necessarily seen as self-states. They were simply the number of reciprocal roles that we could identify in ourselves or in a patient with the corresponding core pain. And so how so often one procedure would lead to another. So something we've just talked about, striving, might lead to, you know, the over-demanding, overburdening in relation to exhausted that you mentioned earlier. So we'd have two there. So under the exhaustion might be the sort of hurt and anger, whereas under the other one we might do the sense of being crushed. They're two different experiences all interwoven together.
I agree. So that's a kind of sequence of
Yes.
reciprocations that
Yes.
create a chronically endured emotional
Yes,
pain.
yes.
And that does link with Michael Lehmann's idea of dialogical sequences,
Yes.
that first you're neglected, then you're pressured,
Yes.
then you're crushed, then you're
There's
abandoned.
conditional care and yes.
So core pain's back in, we think core pain's cool.
I've never lost my attachment or my because I think, and the other dimension to that is finding the words that fit with the patient's experience, because we may have a word for it. We may begin to talk about a crushed sense of self, a hurt self, a compromised self, and it isn't until we've been working with somebody for a bit of time where we really drop down into feeling into their word for it, or we invite them to find the word or the metaphor that most speaks to what it is they're carrying and what's actually underneath the symptom hook that they're coming
Yeah.
into.
I think we've yet to figure out that some of this core pain is felt but not worded.
Yes.
Not the words
Yes.
have not yet been
Yes.
found, they're beyond
Yes.
words. Some pain is so hurt, so hardly or strongly dissociated, it's unformulated experience. It's there, but somewhere in the brain or the body there's some trace of it, but it's not.
And of course that, as you said earlier, that led on to the state diagrams, that some people just prefer doing different state diagrams with maybe one word in it, a subpersonality or a metaphor word of it, and then gradually some aspect of a feeling state or core pain state, or most importantly the reciprocal role that maintains that metaphor, can be amplified from that. But they developmentally have become different things.
We'll leave it there.
Thank you. Oh, phew.